For most of the 20th century, segregation was the way of life in Southern states. Jim Crow laws created separate facilities for Black and white Americans. Discrimination left many Black Americans living in poverty. Lynchings and violence against Black Americans was commonplace and went unpunished. But after Black Americans fought valiantly in a segregated military in World War II, many believed it was time for a change. This video is intended to provide an overview of the civil rights movement and give a brief background on the events and accomplishments of the civil rights era. Let's begin. In 1954, civil rights leaders got their first major victory. The Supreme Court ruled in Brown versus Board of Education that segregation in public education was unconstitutional. This decision would force public schools to have to integrate and gave Black Americans hope that segregation in other aspects of life could be overturned. In 1955, Emmett Till, a 14-year-old Black teenager from Chicago, was murdered in Mississippi while visiting relatives. He was killed for talking fresh to a white woman. While his accusers were acquitted by an all white jury, media coverage of the trial drew national attention to the violence blacks in the South were dealing with. It mobilized people to push back. In December of 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. In response, Black citizens launched a year-long boycott of the Montgomery bus system to show the economic power of the Black community. The Montgomery bus boycott, along with a Supreme Court ruling, eventually led to the desegregation of the bus system in Montgomery and other major Southern cities. In 1957, the first major attempt at school desegregation took place at Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 Black students were set to attend high school there. Governor Orville Faubus used the National Guard to prevent the Black students from entering the school. When the courts ruled this was illegal, Faubus removed the guards and used only local police to protect the students. It led to mob violence. President Eisenhower ordered the 101st Airborne Division of the Army to protect the students and ensure their safety. This was known as the Little Rock Crisis. While integration did occur in 1957, Faubus and other Southern governors ordered schools to be closed rather than seeing them integrated. In the early 1960s, acts of civil disobedience were used to protest for civil rights. Groups such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee organized lunch counter sit-ins to protest segregated eating establishments in department stores. Freedom rides took place as integrated groups from the North and South rode buses to protest segregated facilities at bus stations throughout the South. In 1963, the March on Washington, the largest and most famous civil rights gathering, took place. At the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King delivered his iconic I Have a Dream speech to over 200,000 attendees. Almost a year later, Congress finally passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act prohibited discrimination in housing, employment, and all public accommodations. It is intended to codify the equal rights granted in the 14th Amendment and was the primary objective of the civil rights movement. Now you know about some of the major moments of the civil rights movement. From Brown versus Board of Ed to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, this decade changed American society. Thank you for watching, and I encourage you to learn more about these events.